welcome to another Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, Captain Logun, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today. So tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week, we're going to be talking about Sea of Thieves' upcoming drops that they just had, what I thought of them. We're also going to be talking about the Golden Glory weekend that's coming up. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I want you guys to know about, especially with things like the Sea of Thieves Heart of Fire book next week when the Xbox showcase happens. And there's also some stuff that I want to make sure that I cover in the show notes, what I think of the season so far, and the Plunder Pass. All that and more in this week's episode of Keelhauled Podcast. But before I get into any of that, I have to thank the patrons. They are the ones that went over to patreon.com/Keelhauled Podcast to support this content. They are the producers. They help pay the bills. So I like to call out every episode that they are appreciated, that I appreciate that the time they spend to go in and make sure that things are taken care of, that they have access to the Gold Hoarder channels, that they have access to the guild, which, by the way, we're doing really well on. I think we're in the early teens or the late teens for gear tier 4 right now, which is nice. And we just got new ledgers for these as well, too. So good time to start working on our ledgers for the guild. That way you can get those rewards. So as always, thank you to A-Chick, L-Cute, Balls, Blue Turtle V1, Captain Chonky, Captain Longsharts, Chateau Noof, Super Pack, Zombie Killer, Cosmic Johnson, Static Mir, Davram TV, El Jefe Esteban, Godhammer 6, Carl Embo, Kylia the Aficionado, Kyler B, Nightstar 1980, Evil Morpheus, Space Admiral Ors, Xbox Mike 29, Norwegian, Rabid Raccoon, Registella the Brony Pirate, Ribloid, Rustbelt Kid, Shoe Daddy 13, The Demon Gesture, Tommy D, TN Professor, Vaporwave, Vibrolux, Wailing Witch, Big Bad Pad, Mina Fairy, Hager Owl, Jeff H, Captain Duckweed, Evil Martha, Peter Miller, Rooski Doo, Thor Von Blitz, Luke Lore the Insipid Ghost, and Zam Wow. Thank you all so much for your support. I really do appreciate you guys spending the time to help out. It really does mean the world to me. Next episode is hopefully going to be the interview with Mike Chapman. Just waiting on approval for that. I am going to be at SGF, so I won't be able to do an episode as usual, but this one will be queued up for you. Depending on timing and how things go, because I'm going to be flying out on Thursday. I want to try and get it done in the next few days, so that way I can have it scheduled to go live on the regular day that you have it, so that way you have that interview while I am gone. If not, it may be something that I have to figure out afterwards, but I'm kind of banking on the best at this point. So looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to everyone hearing it because it was a really good conversation. So with that, pirates, let's get into it. First on today's docket, let's talk about Sea of Thieves Heart of Fire. There is, if you haven't until recently found out, that there are books for Sea of Thieves. Yes, there are novels. They are done by Chris Alcock, who's a fantastic human being. And the first one is been out for a while. It's available for free, I believe, on Spotify as well as YouTube. I think it's on YouTube. And that's for the audio version if you'd like. I recommend always, feel free to pick up a copy of the books. But the second one is now available on ebook for free until June 8th. It is June 1st as of recording, so you have a week. All you have to do is head over to and I'll put the link in the show notes, by the way. There's a link tree for this. It's for SOT. It's linktree /Sea of Thieves HOF, which is linkt.ee/Sea of Thieves, all spelled out HOF. And what that'll do is that'll take you to the link tree, which will give you Amazon, Kubo, and Apple books for both UK and US. And you can go in there, claim whichever one you want. This is available for Amazon Kindle, for Google eBooks, for Apple Books, and Kobo, Roku10. Roku10. I can't remember how it's spelled. Roku10 from May 8th to June 1st. Now, this was interesting because the post about this was made on May 27th. So there's not a whole lot of time for this. If you go to the link tree and you can't find it there, head over to the ebook section of the app that you're using and search for Sea of Thieves Heart of Fire for Amazon, Google, Apple, or Kobo. And that way you'll be able to jump in there and actually claim that Kindle version or that the ebook version of this. It's a great way to find out some of the history of Flameheart that is most very much relevant right now. You also learn about Duke. There's Captain Rook if you played through the George and Rose Tall Tale from the original Tall Tales, as well as Grey Morrow and Slate, Captain Slate. Gray Slate. No, Gray Slate does. That's stupid. Slate, Captain Slate. I can't remember. Anyway, you'll learn about some of the different crews that were actually like part of the original Tall Tales, which I think is fantastic. It's a great book. I really enjoyed my time with it. I especially really liked some of the twists in there with just the concept of pirates and the skeletal curse, how that all, it kind of works its way out, like how that susses it out, how much power a couple of the characters in Sea of Thieves have, surprisingly how much power they have, and just some of the outcomes. It kind of like fills in some of the gaps and gives you a little backstory to what's going on with characters that will become relevant soon, I feel like, in Sea of Thieves, as we continue to grow and expand the different emissaries, with Reapers being the most recent. Having that expansion kind of reaffirms the focus on Flameheart, especially with the Voyage, and what's going to come with that further down the line too. The Order of Bone and Blade, I think, are growths and expansions in the area of Reaper Bones and what they are, what they mean. And the Heart of Fire is kind of a good way to give you that sense of history that honestly has not really been presented in the game until this point. We really haven't had a whole lot of people really know about the Reaper's Bones, partially because it was because of a certain person that brought Flameheart back that kind of brought this all to light. For a long time people had probably forgotten about the Reapers, and it wasn't until Heart of Fire and the Heart of Fire, the Tall Tale, and then subsequently the Herald of Flame adventure, that it became a lot more relevant for Sea of Thieves to kind of know more about the Reapers, right? So I really, if you are a fan of books, if you're a fan of lore, if you're a fan of just reading or story in general, again, this is going to end on June 8th. It's a great way to get a free version of the ebook. I personally really love the ebook versions when I don't necessarily remember what page part of the story is on, but I remember what I'm trying to look up. So there's very, very much like points where I've gone back to pull stuff for lore reasons, just to double check like what I've learned over the years. And the ebook versions of those are great to be able to like give me that searchability function when it comes to lore and stuff like that. I've done this a lot too with the ebook or the e-Kindle versions of the comic books. I've gone and I've purchased as many of the comics as I can, whether they be trade back versions or the original like releases of the Sea of Thieves comics, and I've really appreciated having those on hand. But the ebooks, great way to quickly pull up, search, sometimes even through just like Google search, be able to look up certain pages for dialogue or hints. I remember originally when we were first kind of talking about like the GMU, the comics were instrumental in developing who the GMU is, or the Grand Maritime Union, and giving us background on who they are as a company on seas and what their goal is, especially with the Merchant Alliance, formation of the Merchant Alliance, and how they came to the Sea of Thieves as a result of an expedition gone wrong through negligence, hubris, ego that forced the GMU to try and pierce through the veil. It was great to have that story told through those comics. And with Heart of Fire, it really is a testament to the depth that's possible with Sea of Thieves, to the point where it's like sometimes these things are so cool that it's like I hope that they make the jump, like what was it recently? I just saw I think there was an announcement for Diablo getting a TV series through Netflix. I think after the Overwatch path had kind of fallen through, that project had fallen through, so I think they're doing Diablo now. But it's like it's one of those situations where it's like it'd be really cool if at some point we transitioned from one medium to another. We've had the Fallout show, which has been very successful. They're planning on more seasons of that. The Last of Us season 2 just wrapped on HBO Max, and which is really weird because that did not feel like a finale. If you know what I'm talking about, and you watch the show and you're finished with it, because all the episodes are out now. The last episode most certainly did not feel like a finale to me. It felt like it was I was expecting another episode to happen, and so I was very surprised by that. But make sure you're doing this. Again, have to stress, June 8th is the cutoff for the free version. It's still going to be made available. It's not like it's going anywhere, but it's going to be more. You're going to have to actually buy a copy of it if you want it. So if you're looking forward to Heart of Fire, they still don't have an audiobook version that I've seen out there. I would really love to have them get the, well, actually, no, I don't want to put upon anyone in particular to get it. But the voice actor for the Sea of Thieves first novel, I think did a great job. I'm trying to remember what his name was now that I'm Toby Stevens, I think, is because it was oh gosh, now I'm trying to bring up my Black Sails memory, and I'm forgetting what the name of Toby Stevens' character was. It was like Captain Flint, I think, was the name. Oh gosh, I can't remember. See, this is the problem. See, every once in a while, I try to remember who's. I'm just gonna look it up because sometimes it's easier just to quickly look it up. Black Sails, yeah, Toby. Okay, so it was Toby Stevens. I'm not wrong. What was his name in there? It was, yeah, Captain Flint. I hope that's what I said. Anyway, they ought to get Zach McGowan, who did Charles Vane, to do Heart of Fire, because he's got that raspy voice. That would be fantastic for Flameheart. Even though we already have Flameheart. We got a voice actor. Although I will say that if the Sea of Thieves team can get Flameheart to do multiple voices, actually, I'd actually really, really like it if they were able to get more than just if they were to get a lot of them to be able to do it. Like Clive Wood does the Pirate Lord. If they could get Captain Grimm, Anthony Howell looks like would be great. Ewan Bailey for Merrick, Ed Stoppard for Captain Pendragon. There's so many really, really fantastic, smart actors and actresses out there. If they could get some of them to do the audio version as I can't think of what they call it, but it's like a company of actors and actresses to be able to do the voice work for Heart of Fire. Oh, that'd be worth it. That'd be so totally worth it. I'd love that. But anyway, talking about Heart of Fire, make sure you're getting your copy. Make sure that you get, even if you're not even sure you're going to read it, just get it so that you don't have to worry about it later on. Okay. Next up on time sensitive things, let's talk about Golden Glory weekend. This is kicking up on the 6th. It'll be going on through the 9th, which is roughly Friday in the early morning, or it's going to be Friday morning to it's Monday morning. But Golden Glory is heading out there. So you've got the boosted reputation, gold, seasonal renown, allegiance, and guild reputation. As always, nice to have this happen. Terrible timing because I'm going to be gone and I'm going to be at Summer Games Fest. I have no clue if Rare's going to be doing something for the Xbox Showcase. Not to get into that just yet, but June 6th through the 9th, make sure that you guys are getting out there and sailing. We still don't know necessarily what week they're going to be doing the Fight Night Fridays, which is going to be the week-long talk or kind of double golden reputation for Hourglass. But if you're trying to get ahead of that and you want to get some of that done soon, I would say that, Golden Glory weekend is going to be the best opportunity for you to be able to get that. So make sure that you are planning your voyages accordingly and that you don't miss out on that. All right. Next on today's docket, let's talk about U2s, which if you don't know, have been kind of the main kind of partner for Sea of Thieves for quite a while now. They've been putting out a lot of the U2 figures for Sea of Thieves, including ones like the Gold Hoarder. What was it? The Shrouded Ghost. Did we have a Shrouded Ghost? I know we had a Megalodon. There was a Ghost Ship. Quite a few. There's another one. So if you are collecting these things and you're trying to get stuff, there's a plush that is now available that's 9 inches. It's $30 in the US, which actually isn't too bad. But it is the Shadow Maw Megalodon plush. It's adorable. I'm actually very tempted to pick this up. There is a Chase variant, which is actually the Shrouded Ghost, or what it would potentially look like if anyone actually knew what it did look like. They have what their concept art of what a Shadow Maw would look like. There is a 1 in 6 chance to come across the Shrouded Ghost, which is much better than the 0% in Sea of Thieves. So I appreciate that the chances of actually getting it are a lot higher. But that's going out there. It's going to be made available between now and I think the shipping date is starting on July 25th to August 25th. So this was released on March 31st, and you have until that time to be able to pre-order that. There's not really any indications at the moment on if this is going to be continued beyond those times or if this is a limited time release. At the moment, it doesn't say so in the actual description of the plush. Let me go back to the actual link that they had here and see if I can find it. I think I might have actually accidentally gone to the wrong page. So that's going to make that a little bit tougher. So according to the actual tweet, no, it is no mention of it being limited. So not quite sure. Just based on the fact that there's only about a month time frame for this is actually going to be shipping. But at the moment, again, 9-inch Megalodon, little tiny sized one, going to be made available for $30. It's tempting. It really is, just to try and get that Shrouded Ghost one. But I actually really like the Shadow Maw. I think the Shadow Maw is like my favorite of all the Megalodons. I actually ended up killing one really close to the ship today when I was sailing about after I'd stolen somebody's random fort that they didn't finish. But it was nice. I really enjoyed that they are continuing this partnership with U2s. I'm still hoping that at some point we're going to get some big statues. It would be fantastic. I know there's probably a fair amount of 3D sculptors out there who could probably do some prints of actual like characters in the game. We never did get anything like that, but it'd be cool. I don't know. Maybe one day they'll actually partner with someone who does 3D prints for statues, and we'll be able to get like proper figures. I know we had the Kotaku figure for the little Gold Hoarder one. We've also had what was that? Loot Crate had the different versions of the Ghost Ship in a Bottle, as well as Captain Flameheart for a hot minute there. But we haven't had any like proper scaled versions of the characters like Belle, Ramsey, Flameheart, the Gold Hoarder, Lissetti and DeMarco, Sing. God, you come up with any character the Ferryman. Grey Morrow, Pendragon. Gosh, there's so many characters that would be really cool to just have actual like proper statues with decent bases. I have to say, I'm really not a fan of the statues. I see this a lot with like anime figures when I go to cons and stuff that just have like a base statue plate. Like the base of the actual statue is just dull and boring, and I'm so over it that I'm just like, really? That's not okay. All right. Next up on today's docket, let's talk about the Twitch drops that we just got in for Sea of Thieves. This was this weekend, or this last week, technically. And they're really nice. I was actually surprised. I wasn't quite sure, like, with them kind of changing things up, how things would go, because for the first 30 minutes, you got 75,000 gold. Pretty good, not bad. I think that's, just shy of 4 orbs from skeleton camps. It's like 3 Reaper bounties, I think. Maybe, no, probably a little bit more. Are Reaper bounties still 20 grand? I don't think they are. I don't think they're that good anymore. Anyway, the 1 hour was 1 level of renown, which at the beginning of a season is actually pretty, that's not bad. That's pretty cool. You got the hurdy-gurdy show off emote for 1.5 emotes, which was good if you haven't had it, but I think a lot of folks may actually have that. The Twilight Hunter flag, which was 2 hours, which kind of a little jokey there. It's pretty bland. But then you got the devout Captain's Voyage for 3 hours. Now, the other ones were good. You had the Gilded Phoenix hurdy-gurdy at 4 hours. You had the Amethyst Mercenary hat, which, if you don't know, is the Black Sea Dog hat, or the hat, the funny blue hat. I'm trying to remember what the actual name is. I actually can't remember off the top of my head. No pun intended. But the Amethyst Mercenary hat, which is nice. It's the Mercenary set, which I think we do have the Mercenary set, the green one as well too. So there's 4 variants now that I can think of off the top of my I keep saying that, I don't know why. And then for 5 hours, and then for the 6th hour, you got the Spring Blossom pistol. Very nice to see a variety of cosmetics. I think the renown in the gold, not too big, but does help out at the start of a season. The Devout Captain's Voyage was the interesting one for me, because this is the one that felt like it lasted for about, I think, 9 days. And it was good to kind of spawn a bunch of captains on an island with mega kegs and kegs in general. And if you wanted to save those, you could use those as gold as well too. But a lot of folks would have probably had an interesting time trying to do that. But chances are you probably just use them to blow up the captains faster. When you did that, you weren't necessarily sure what you would get. I think in my case, I got a couple raid items for some of the different factions. And I think one of them, gosh, I'm trying to remember. I want to say one of them was pretty good. Like it was a box of wondrous secrets or something. I can't quite remember. That's how bad my memory is sometimes. But for 6 hours, getting 8 different items, granted 2 of those being gold and renown level, it's nice to see that the value feels like it's a lot better. And I wanted to call this out because this is something where for quite a while, many of us have been sharing our displeasure with the common recolors of variants or various sets. And we haven't really had that time where we've been able to say like, oh, this is a really cool Twitch drop. I'm going to make sure that I sign up for this. But the fact that this was 6 hours, longer than typical, but it went on for a week, is now kind of saying like, okay, well, maybe this is how Sea of Thieves goes about drops, because it did give Twitch folks, and this was something for everyone. You didn't have to be you didn't have to be a partner, which I appreciate. It gave folks kind of a bit of a buy-in, like, hey, you're not going to be stuck to just the weekend to try and get your 4 hours in. It's only asking for 2 more hours, and the rewards are more unique than you typically would get in the past. And we're giving you a week to earn them. So I really appreciated this. I thought it was great. I hope that in the future that the Twitch drops are of this caliber and offer the longer time span for folks to be able to do it. So it's not just a weekend burst where most people, because they're going to be busy either sailing or they're going to be busy doing other stuff in life, have an opportunity to be able to drop in, do an hour here, do an hour there, do a few hours if they need to. But for 6 hours, you're going to be able to get all of this stuff. And I think that is worth calling out and saying like, hey, you know what, Rare? I really appreciated this way of going about Twitch drops. I think this was a successful Twitch drops. Many people got them. I don't think that there was anyone that I had heard from or spoke to about these that was displeased with the length of the number of hours that you had to watch, given that the rewards were good and that you had a week to do them in. So there wasn't too much objection from the community from my perspective. So I really appreciated that. It was nice to see folks streaming on various days that they may or may not have been able to participate in the drops normally, take advantage of this opportunity. So good job on Rare for going this route with it. I think that that's a very nice way to kind of showcase that you are listening to the community's feedback with regards to Twitch drops. Next up on today's docket, I wanted to talk about the Plunder Pass. New season, and with that brings in a new Plunder Pass, both a free and a paid tier. We've also had ledger resets at the beginning of June now. We know what kind of rewards we're going to be getting for this season. Unfortunately, it does not appear as though there are new seasonal rewards for the trade companies. There are rewards for the guild ledgers, but for the regular different reputations, there is not currently anything listed. Previously, these would be shown off as the coming soon. And then when the season would roll over with a new month within that first season, they would become obtainable. This is unfortunately not the case, which kind of makes me wonder if this is maybe something that's coming later down the line, or they just didn't have anything planned for future content on the ledgers. Something I'm kind of surprised by. Now, this isn't unprecedented. We have had these kind of situations in the past where the ledgers just didn't reset. And then eventually they did have some new cosmetics that they put into the ledgers to reward people for completing within the top 25% player base when it comes to those emissary rewards. I do kind of wonder, looking at how we address a lot of these cosmetics, if this is something that is still appreciated by the community. Because it's one of those things where if it's not, this is art, assets, and time that is dedicated to a system that is fairly weak. And we've seen them do something like this with the insider rewards, where they have canceled any future insider rewards, which means that you can go in and earn all the rewards, which I know for a lot of folks may diminish the amount of importance or time investment that came as a result of working on insiders each week, the dedicated group who got those cosmetics, and we're expecting to have more cosmetics without any catch-up mechanics so that they could show that off as a prized value set to them, like they actually did it, whereas other people are just kind of going to be catching up as they play through. The insider rewards aside, I do expect that eventually we will get ledger updates for the different trade companies, as they have just kind of introduced the new one. I have not actually gone in to check and see if the cosmetics for the Reapers, or no, I have actually. Now that I think about it, I think I did actually go into my reputation to take a look and see if there are actually rewards for them. And I don't think there are, even though they've expanded what the Reaper's bones are. I don't think that they've actually gone in for the emissaries to actually showcase like what new cosmetics are coming. So I think that's still par for the course. Which we're at this point, we're just waiting to see what's new. For a lot of folks, they probably have not gotten most of them, as the player base for Sea of Thieves is varied as far as the times that this stuff became available versus how long they've been playing. So I'm sure there are plenty of folks out there that are just now getting into the ledgers and are still trying to catch up on what is currently the most available cosmetics. So then if we go back and we take a look at the actual Plunder Pass, I'm actually pretty happy with what they've done with the actual cosmetics for this season. I think that the season cosmetics are nice. I did forget that I actually got a season pass, or the plunder pass for this season through the pre-purchase of the BattleNet edition. So looking at the current set, which is available, which is going to be the Oysters Prize livery set, which comes with the hull, has the oh gosh, what is this called? The Oysters Prize cannon flare, which I've never touching cannon flares. Unfortunately, apologies, Rare. I don't think that they're good cosmetics. But you'll be able to collect that set. There's also a belt that's available. You've got the flag, you've got the capstan, you've got the wheel. There is an eye patch that's going to be added or included in this as well as cannons. You've got the figurehead, the flag, or not the flag, I'm sorry, the sails, and a jacket, which is actually a pretty nice jacket, very much more of like a sophisticated one, kind of in the same vein that we've seen recently with some of the more high society at the time of piracy when it comes to cosmetics or looks or fashion and style. And then of course you have like the collector's sale available to you through that plunder pass as well. Not a set that I personally am too like amazed by. It's not one that I actually like all that much, but I do actually like the Boneward set. So with the seasonal renown, you have a bunch of different makeup and style choices for your cosmetics, including what I think is two of the really nice ones, which is actually a lower mask of Boneward Blade, which is kind of gosh, I don't even really know how to describe it that well, but it is a very iron based mask that fits across your face. I keep wanting to cover my mouth as I like talk with my hands, but that's not good podcasting to cover your mouth when you're trying to speak into a microphone. But it does look like an iron mask. Very much can't wait to see folks who find the right kind of hood with the Pirate Legend curse and this mask to turn it into a Sub-Zero or Scorpion or Smoke cosplay from Mortal Kombat. I'm sure that'll happen at some point. But in addition to this, there's actually the upper mask of Boneward Blade, which is topped with Tarnished Pride and masked by Brooding Shadow. And that's available to all players, which is really kind of nice. I really think that Rare does a very generous job of offering cosmetics through their renown for folks that want to be able to like have new sets. But aside from that, there's also a crested hat of Boneward Blade, which is effectively a spiked metal mohawk, which sounds as cool as it actually is. And I really think that they did a good job with that as well. The Boneward Blade rest of the cosmetics are littered throughout the actual seasonal pass, as well as the hull of Bone and Blade, which is a black and red hull with some skeleton runes across it. Then there's also the dress of the Boneward Blade, as well as what I think are some of the more interesting Pirate Legend cosmetics that come in, because they're actually tied to the Bonesmith from the Reaper's Lair, who is in charge of effectively grafting on and customizing your skeletal curse. But we get the eye patch from the Bonesmith on level 50, and level 100 has the Bonesmith's jacket, which has kind of an interesting jawline cowl, or not cowl, neck piece around it. So very simplistic, but stated as more parts of the Bone and Blade and Reaper's faction really highlighted in this. Gotta say, one of my favorites though has to be the Order of Bone and Blade Hurdy-Gurdy, which very much looks like something from a Gwar kind of a pirate metal kind of concert. It's nice. I like it. I think they did a good job with it. There's an Order of Bone and Blade drum as well, which is almost as cool, if not as cool as the original Hunter's Call, the Megalodon one that Merrick gave you at the first event. But they have a banjo as well as a concertina. So nice to get some instruments in with the seasonal renown. But I do like this. I'm up to 83 so far in the seasonal. So in the season's reward. So definitely getting close to capping that out. Not sure what I'm really going to be doing for the rest of the season. But at least I'll have my renown finished up in that case. Next, I wanted to jump into what I think is just kind of the season so far. We have a lot of Reapers running around. There's a really interesting tie-in with the Voyage that I think they've done a fairly good job with. The Reapers have PvE voyages, which I know is going to kind of rail against what the initial concept of the Reapers was, which was the PvP faction. There were no quests for them to do. It was purely designed around going out and sinking other ships and using that treasure to then turn into Flameheart, or at the time, the Servant, to be able to gain reputation with them. Your reputation was earned through sinking. But that was not how it eventually kind of came about. People found out that they could just do PvE stuff. A lot of people grinded out Fort of the Dams. And for the most part, it became the PvE mix that it is today. The onset of Voyages is interesting to see as the faction gets kind of explored more, because a lot of people will probably take a look at these Voyages and think that this is just the PvE nature of Rare pushing us to do more Voyages for reputation gains. But one thing that they've done that I think is actually kind of a tool that they've used in the past that they were hoping would be a thing that kind of like has us kind of engaging with other crews, is the inclusion of the Reaper's Mark. And it does actually show, like, this is something that we used to do back when we were delivering rag and bone crates and kegs, as well as there was something else that we were doing too with the mercenary voyages. And I'm blanking out on what it was. But we had to run around and actually have our Reaper's Mark up whilst completing some of these build red adventures. And the intent there was to draw attention to you as a ship so that players could engage and try to sink you, or you find them and go sink them as well too. So it's only natural that if you were going to be doing Reaper voyages that were centered around discovering secrets and gathering information and recruits for Flameheart, that you should be very kind of confident in your ability to deal with other people who can see you on the map. And Rare has got a hot fix coming in on this Monday to address some of the stuff going on with the new skull that shows on the quest table. And this is because at the moment, if you were to put the skull in a collector's chest of some kind, then it would actually disappear from the map, which kind of negates the point of it showing up on the map. They want people to be able to know where it is. So as you go into the Reaper faction, you have this voyage, which tasks crews to uncover long lost skeletons from the fabled Order of Bone and Blade, which was Flameheart's crew, while working to unearth ancient sarcophagi while fighting back ancient phantoms dead set on defending their secrets. These ancients who were trapped in these sarcophagi were kind of the bad people of the Sea of Thieves in the ancients' time, and there was a reason why they were locked away. And these ancients who are defending this ancient sarcophagus from being opened are trying to stop people from obtaining power through dark means that they explored, that the ancients locked away explored back in the day. So it's kind of a fun voyage. I'm not going to lie. As soon as you put it up, you raise the Reaper mark on your ship, announcing that you're going to be at this spot. It's also got a fairly large haze on the map. So if you were to look up across the map, you would instantly see this haze, very similar to Veil voyages when you go to a voyage quest portion that has Bell, kind of having you go out and find these beacons in the sky to uncover different things to be able to have ancients fight you, and then you bring it back, yada, yada, yada. So there's really like no reason why people who even aren't like trying to run an emissary could be hiding from folks while doing this. There's really no reason, if you take one glance at the map and you look around, that you would have a hard time finding someone who's actually on this voyage. So I like that they are saying, hey, you are going to have to turn in 50 of these skulls. You're going to have to raise up 16 of the different pillars, and you're going to have to do so while marked on the map. And if you're going to be marked on the map, I'll be perfectly honest, you might as well do it with the Reaper Emissary, because if you're going to turn anything into the Reapers, you should try to get extra money for it. You're running the risk. Why not put yourself in the position to earn more off of that risk? The risk is going to be the same regardless. So some of the different voyage aspects of this are great. I like that initially you have to go and find the Reaper's parrot somewhere on the island. It'll tell you where, but when you do, it will then have you dig up a casket, Reaper chest. And when you pop it open, you'll have 4 little buddies spawn up, and these nerds will walk around with you and help you as you try to unearth some of these different ancient pillars, and they will help kind of defeat the ancients. They can't die, but they can get knocked down. So you do actually have to resurrect them. And I think that they've done a good job of ensuring that they do a decent amount of work. This is still something that is very soloable with these guys, and I appreciate that. But even if you were to go onto an island, there's a good chance that you might actually find some of the little skeletons that are the Order of Bone and Blade skeletons on the islands, kind of half buried, that you then have to unbury and then raise up so that they can actually help you. And you can have, there's typically 2 on the larger islands. I think there's only a couple times I've ever run into like 1 on a big island, but that I might have missed the other one as well too. But they're fairly apparent if you're looking at an island. They're a big bright glimmer along the beach line or something like that. And as you're kind of working to find out where these pillars are, and you dig them out, and they will help you dig them out, you raise them up, and then you effectively have to turn them to kind of unlock the last location where the sarcophagus is that has the widow's bones in it, or maybe a skeleton of an ancient who was loyal to the widow, who was, I think I talked a little bit about this, but someone who was kind of like the head of the ancients. She was a queen at one point. I think her daughter was the one that had actually buried her. And she was a princess and then eventually a queen as well. But effectively was stopped by her daughter as well as other ancients, and then trapped in the sarcophagi. So once you do 4 of the pillars, you'll find out where the sarcophagus is. You'll unearth it. And then once you open it, the little skeletons will go around and dig up different little items. And then you can retrieve the skull of the banished from the sarcophagus to take back to Flameheart. All in all, I liked it. I think they're fun. I think there's enough of a little bit of like interactivity with them that you have some combat, you have some adventure, and then when you're done, you have some gold to be able to go turn into Reapers. All the while you are marked. So there's no hiding at all from this. It's very apparent. There's a lot of tornadoes in the sky now, which I think I have issue with, because I think that the design mentality around what tornado is associated with what event is getting a little convoluted, and that they need to try to discern the difference between them. And I think a lot of that could come down to just a basis of color. Right now, I think there's 2 green tornadoes, unless you count the one that is associated with the bell aspect of the Veil mission. There's the obviously end of the Veil mission, which is green. And then you have, of course, the green tornado that indicates that there is a ghost fleet up for a world event, whether it's a dive 2 or an emergent one. Then you have like the Ashen Lords tornado, or if you're doing a Fort of Fortune, there's eventually like a red tornado, or actually can't remember if there's a red tornado. I think it's just the meatballs that fall down. And then you have the spirals. You've got the green and red for the Reaper's chests. You've got the red variant for the Burning blade. Then you have the Burning Blade itself. Then you have the Reaper bounties, which are gold. Then you have the Skull of Siren songs. There's a lot of swirly stuff in Sea of Thieves, if you're catching my drift here. So I think we need to figure out another means of identifying things in the game from a visual perspective that is easy to identify while looking across the horizon. What that is, hard to say. I don't know that Rare is quite sure what they should be doing, and I'm sure they've probably had some meetings over this, but right now I do think that they need to try and lean a little more off of the twisters and swirlies and go with something else that might be a stronger indicator. I think even with the Skull of Siren song, the key and the chest are just straight beacons, which is enough identifier on your ship to basically say like, hey, this is important. You might want to pay attention to this. And the markers on the maps as well too. While the iconography is unique, it is starting to get to a point where there are so many that a lot of players will not be quite sure what those are. I know myself, I can't even recall what it was. I think it might have been a Fort of the Damned or a FOF key. But I was genuinely trying to scratch my head on what the icon was on the map, and I couldn't quite remember. And I was sitting there looking at it like, I don't think I've ever actually looked at these enough times to recall what they are. But at that point, I was kind of like, hey, it's not really my goal. I'm not too worried about it right now. So I'm just going to leave it be. I'm sure it's probably one of those things where there's a good chance it was for a Fort of the Damned or a Fort of Fortune, in which case, if they hadn't already opened it, they either didn't know which fort was the one that it belonged to, or it was a dead key and they couldn't do anything with it and they didn't think to toss it off their ship. So all in all, I like the new voyage. I'm very curious to see what we get later on. We do know that we are going to be getting casks later that offer you the opportunity to get different types of skeletons that can spawn from them. And shout out to Drew, because I'm going to be real honest here. He went and started to have some discussion with folks over on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. And there was some nice back and forth and some discussions about what to expect, as well as some quality of life stuff. There was one thing that came up, which was a question that came in from Gaming Anja over on Twitter as a result of the maintenance request that's coming in on the 2nd, which should include fixes to the Skull of the Banished as well as the Cannon of Rage. Since we did have some wrinkles, according to them, with some of those that they want to make sure that they get ironed out. And the question came in and said, will you launch the casks of verdant bones? Then I wonder. And Drew says, cask of verdant bones incoming. Now, there's no date or time on this for sure. We don't actually know if the cask of verdant bones is going to be something that's brought in later in the season with the next update in June, which typically is like the third to fourth weekend, or third week of the month. But if you're not familiar, and I'm guessing here, so I'm going to take a moment to just kind of, eat crow if I'm wrong about this. The casks of verdant bones are the the Reaper chests that you can create to be able to use as a portable army, where you can spawn four skeletons to work for you once you've actually completed them. And I think, as cool of a name as Casket of Verdant Bones, there's so much better of a name. And I want to start calling these, and I've already reached out to Captain Falcor and Fuzzy Bond. I've already reached out to a couple folks just to kind of say hey, Behaving Beardly, it would be fantastic if the casket of verdant bones that spawns plant skellies was not actually called the caskets of verdant bones, but instead salad bars. I would love to just call these salad bars. I don't quite know what I would want to call the shadow skelly ones or the metal skellies. You know, I typically call them vegans, metalheads, and goths. But I also call the ancient red maws Big Red and Barney. We also call the tridents of dark tides Disney sticks, storage crates or karma crates. And I won't say what the rowboats are, but I'm pretty sure you know what the harpoon and cannon rowboats are typically called. But all intents and purposes, the community tends to come up with names for their stuff, regardless of whatever the actual name is. The vernacular is then referred to as Disney stick. So I'm hoping that salad bar sticks. I think it's funny. I think it represents what these are, which are just a bunch of plant skellies coming out of a box, which sounds more like a salad bar to me than anything else in Sea of Thieves. So if you've got a better name, I'm open to it. But for the time being, I'm just going to keep calling these things salad bars until I come up with another name for the other ones that better aligns with what these should be. But it's kind of cool that we're going to be able to do this because I actually really like these new skellies. I think they're fun. I think they are nice to be able to use when I'm lazy and I don't want to have to try and analyze and triangulate the dig. So, and with that, you've got some of these commendations, which I actually like that they did these commendations because I think these commendations are designed around trying to use the skeletons to learn like how they are effective on islands as like a little power grab. But once you get to one of the different seas, which there's the 4, you have to do 10 different voyages, complete them in the different seas. So the wilds, the ancients, the shores of plenty, and the devil's roar, with an unearthed skeleton accompanying you. So one of the things that I recommend is I've been going around and I'll hop on a big island where I know there's definitely going to be at least one of these guys. I'll dig him up and then I'll go looking around for an emergent captain. Chances are it's an Ashen Guardian, but every once in a while I'll come across an emergent skeleton captain. I then dispatch the captain, or guardian, which will then drop a voyage. That voyage counts towards these commendations. So it's real easy. It's simple to be able to hop on an island, dig up one of these boneheads, take the nerd over to some other nerd, kill that nerd, pick up the message in a bottle that was their voyage for you, and then show it to the nerd that you dug up, and then have that nerd run and take you to where the dig spot is, where then you dig it up and get whatever it is that the first nerd originally like gave you as the voyage. And I really like that. I think it's fun. I think it's short term, kind of just run around. And if you're lucky and you still need those emergent boars, you'll come across an island that has a hovel with an emergent boar. And you don't really you're not really like having to dedicate yourself to anything too long. Like you can sail out to a big island, dig up one of these guys, find a captain, kill it, take the loot from the voyage, get commendation progress, hopefully a couple pristine boar tusks, and head back to the outpost and turn in, and you're good. That's a half hour worth of time where you just wanted to hop on and do something real quick. And I appreciate that. I think they've done a good job with these guys. I would love to see how this system expands, because I do 100% anticipate these AI characters to kind of like grow as far as functionality, but the functionality is definitely really nice. Currently, I am on the cusp of finishing 3 of the 4 commendations associated with this. I'm at least halfway done with the 3 of them. I haven't been out to the roar, but I do appreciate that they are going to be doing something like that. One of the other things that came out as a result of Twitter, which thank goodness that the devs are actually like still doing stuff on Twitter, because there was a post from Chapman that came out where he had talked about there was a comment that was made online that was talking about Reapers potentially getting another turn-in point for them to be able to not just have Reapers hideout. It was a very one-off comment over on Twitter. It'll be interesting to see if that turns into something, because he did actually say that there was something that could come as a result of that. And it actually pertained to, I'm trying to find it right now. It actually pertained to something that might happen over in the Roar, which I think is very interesting because it's definitely a far enough thing that could kind of be the place from Reapers to another part of Sea of Thieves, which would, in my mind, be a halfway point between the Roar and the main seas out there. So I was thinking, and this is just something I tossed out just for kind of, talking about it. I think the Reapers take back Morrow Peak's outpost. I think that there's a new battle that comes in the form of a community decision. And if we get that opportunity to fight for the Reapers have the opportunity to take over Morrow's Peak outpost. They kick out pretty much everyone else. And what you end up doing is turning Morrow's Peak into a Reaper point turn in, which would be, both sides of the map, one on the far east, one on the far west, for folks to be able to turn in Reaper loot. I think the caveat here is that you would need to reactivate the volcano at Morrow's Peak because it was dormant. And I think the sense here is that if you're going to be out in the Roar and you're going to offer the Reapers another point to turn in, there has to be some sort of threat associated with it because Reapers are all about having that threat. It's a harder thing to run Reaper. So if you're going to give them a second turn in point, as opposed to the one turn in point that they have now, which is already pretty contested, especially now as a result of the new expansion to the Voyage, if you're going to open up the opportunity for them to turn in something elsewhere, then there needs to be some sort of trade-off, some sort of thing that says like the reason why you are going with Reapers because you are choosing the hard mode. You are saying, I'm okay with being marked on the map permanently. I'm okay with having one turn in point for all of this. The PvP is welcome. So in my mind, Reapers find out how they go about reactivating the volcano on Morrow's Peak outpost due to the kind of stagnant nature of the NPCs on Morrow's Peak outpost. They can't quite deal with it. They say, you know what? We're never going to get away from this. Let's just evacuate. And they leave Morrow's Peak outpost and shift over to a different island, one maybe that's close by, but not too close. And as a result, they end up leaving Morrow's Peak outpost to the Reapers, who then turn it into their own kind of Tortuga, where they have NPCs kind of out and about. You can buy stuff from them. You have access to different vendors, and you can kind of showcase some of the stuff that is down in the layer that you normally would not get to see unless you were in your PvP hourglass battles and you had your curse. So one part of it is to say like, hey, Reapers are showcasing some of the stuff that you can get that you may not know about because you don't have access to the layer. Here's how you can get a hold of this stuff and show the commendations that are associated with those cosmetics as a carrot on the stick for that content. The other part of it would be that the active volcano runs a risk of being able to get damaged or take damage on your ship as a result of turning in at that outpost. But it is another Reaper's access point for turning in stuff. If you want some of the best loot from a fort, you go to a Fort of Fortune. Outside of that, you're crazy and go all the way out to Molten Sands because you've got two active volcanoes next to it. But if you're going to be out in the Roar, you understand you were playing hard mode. And if you're playing hard mode out in the Roar as Reaper, you shouldn't really be forced to sail halfway across the world in Sea of Thieves to be able to then just turn in what you've gotten as a result of that. So I think it's a really interesting idea for them to be able to do something like this. I know it was a very one-off comment that came from Mike, so there's no obligation for them to even design this, but it would be interesting to see what people think in the long term. One of the interesting things that did come from Twitter as well was actually as a result of a quick mock-up that Skelly Curse IRL did over on Twitter, tagging Sonic Bob or Drew Stevens to kind of showcase like something that I think many of us know is something that we've wanted and have vocalized, but was surprising to see that Drew called this out as a good idea. Because I think it is something that many of us have had to try and suss out when it comes to new content that comes to the game. Every time there's a new season, there's new commendations through the bilge rats, and with that come qualifications for that commendation. As a result, we tend to have to do Sea of Science, which in and of itself is a great thing. I do enjoy my Sea of Science, but I also like to just have a quick reference. When it says, you hit masts with chain shot using a cannon of rage while wearing a skeleton curse, it says this is something that is an individual task. You have to do this on your own. Whereas in the example here, you killed Order of Bone and Blade skeletons as an Athena Fortune emissary, which then applies to a crew-based item. And it has a little icon with 3 little pirates as opposed to the 1 pirate for the other one. And the idea here is just a quick reference, a visual reference in and of itself, as a way to tell this is something that you must do on your own, or this is something you can do with others. And I think that that would be a fantastic quality of life change to it. I'm surprised that Rare hasn't tried to implement anything like this in the past, because you is a very inclusive term. You refers to you, but if I'm talking to multiple people, I can also just say you, and it includes everyone that's in front of me that I'm addressing. So along with that, let's also take into account enemy. Enemy is a very broad term in Sea of Thieves. There's not really a indicator of what is friend or foe when it comes to people outside your crew, whether it be AI or it be like another crew. So one of the other things that I wanted to kind of post on this was say like, hey, if you're going to be doing a quality of life pass on the UI for the different commendations for the build rat stuff, it would be fantastic if you could also indicate what is considered an enemy. Is it skeleton based? Is it AI based? Or is it intended for other crews? And identify that. So that way, if it says you must hit X number of harpoons or spears into an enemy vessel, does that mean skeletons? Does that mean pirates? Should we be able to tell that? Should we have to go and see a science that? The indication, the clarity that I'm hoping for is something that will help newer players ensure that they understand how these are obtained, especially when it comes down to some of the stuff that's harder that could be done against another enemy ship. Well, that enemy ship could be a skeleton ship. If you have to hit X number of curse balls on an enemy ship and you can't find anyone, but gosh dang it, you got a bunch of curse cannonballs that you want to fire. If an emergent skeleton ship spawns on you, you should be able to know for sure that that commendation applies to all ships, not just AI or just pirate. And that way you can feel free to let loose with your cannon of rage with the curse balls that you have on that ship. Not a big thing, I think, in the scheme of what needs to get fixed in Sea of Thieves, but definitely something that I think is worth the investment in time. Also, if we're going to be on this passive UI, we can favorite things and save things on our ships. One of the things that I think would be fantastic is if this functionality was added to the weapons locker. I understand we are all waiting for the wardrobes or the sets to come out for us to be able to save a selection of cosmetics that we can then put on in an easy fashion and swap between them if we're trying to role play or even just in a different mood and want to look a certain way. Having that, I imagine, is a much larger task that will be added in the future when the team has a lull in not having to troubleshoot other issues, or there's something that comes along, say like a secondary pass through the captaincy system, or what have you, that would allow for them to be able to do something like that. In the interim, I think it would be fantastic if the pinning or saving of specific cosmetics that we have for our captaincy ships would apply for the weapon chest. Allow us to choose our favorite sword, our favorite blunderbuss, our favorite Eye of Reach, and our favorite grapple gun or blow dart or what have you. That way, if we wanted to swap weapons, because we're used to using grapples from we're going from one ship to the island, or from the island or the shipwreck to our ship, and we want to be able to do so in an expedient manner, then going down and actually going to my weapons locker, and if it's not on the first page, which thankfully a lot of my favorites are, I would have to then find the set cosmetic page and then the specific row and column for the cosmetic that I absolutely love. And to be perfectly honest, when it comes to weapons, I do not really scroll past the first page unless I'm dead set on grabbing a cosmetic that I just recently acquired that I want to show off. For example, the Destiny cosmetics. Great. Do I use them all the time? No. Why? Because the ones that I do like a lot are on the first page. And when it comes down to the heat of battle, when you need to swap weapons, say you need to go from a sword to a blunderbuss because you need to try and repel raiders, a lot of people are not going to care what they choose. But wouldn't it be fantastic if we had that first page sorted at the top row by a certain number of favorites? Now, it could just be the top row that is dedicated to favorites. It could be up to the first 3 rows. It could be the whole first page, but at least you would have the agency to be able to choose which cosmetic you like and to be able to actually favorite it so that you had quicker access as opposed to trying to recall which page it is. And I think this is something that could even be applied to emotes as well, too. Hopefully with relatively little dev work invested, similar to how we had the Overhealth for pirates kind of as a small project that didn't require as much dev time or overhaul as, say, like the changing up of the entire UI when it came to the reputations tab. But I would love for something like this to come to Sea of Thieves. I think it's something a lot of us would appreciate, and a good quality of life update. Over the 7 years that we've been playing, many of us have tried to buy every cosmetic. Sometimes you think, man, if I just bought my favorite and left it at that, it'd sure be a lot easier for me to be able to get that cosmetic instead of having all of these other ones that I bought just because I wanted to buy and collect them at the time.
Come to join me, crew lad. Welcome aboard.
With all that said, I think so far, hiccups aside with the Cannon of Rage and the patches they've had to put in, I do like the addition that they've made to the season as far as Reaper's Bones go. It is interesting to see their approach to story dished out in this manner, where Flameheart is now tasking pirates to go out and uncover the Skull of Banished for himself to be able to obtain more secrets to help uncover what he needs to be able to gain the power that he's trying to obtain to become the king of Sea of Thieves. So I feel this is an interesting way to go about the Reaper's Bones voyage system when comparing it to what we had with the Veil. The Veil was a very interesting creation where they had different sections. The sections of the voyage would be random, so you weren't quite sure how you were going to have your voyage set up when you threw it down. But each one kind of had its own unique take on what you had to do to obtain a Veil Stone, to then eventually obtain like the mask and the veil and put the little things in, before eventually Ramsey just stuck it on a stick, and then that was like the, he did the little magic into the Sea of the Damned that way. I like that there is lore tied to this, which in my mind does kind of explain, like, okay, well, why are Reapers doing this? Well, first off, the Reapers are doing this because they need recruits. There's only so many pirates in Sea of Thieves, but there's no shortage of bones apparently. So they want you to go and dig up bones. They want you to go and dig up more crew members for Flameheart. Then they want you to go and get secrets from the ancients, because that's what Flameheart needs to be able to obtain power, instead of just, I don't know, having a fair fight, whatever. And as a result, the lore, well, not very exposition-y if I can make that word up, it is subtle. And I think that is something that Rare is aware of, that they are telling story, that the lore is progressing, but it is not in the same venue as a Tall Tale or an adventure. In fact, we don't even really have journals per se to help kind of flesh out parts of this, as I recall, because at least with the skeleton camps, we did get journals in each one kind of showcasing some of the history behind the ancients, which gave us more information about the dark constellations and how they were tied to ancients and what those ancients meant to each other, their relationships within the Sea of Thieves, and now how we perceive them. But with this, less about the actual novels or journals that we would read to typically get more understanding of what's going on in the actual one. And everything is very kind of secondhand. You're picking it up based on clues and little things that you see as you're working through the voyage, or potentially reading stuff, dialogue from Flameheart. So I'm looking forward to when we are going to get back to that aspect of Sea of Thieves. It feels very much the case since last October, when Rare really had to kind of appraise their development cycle and take account that the content that they're putting out has been very shotgun, that they have not had the caliber of quality that is expected from the community in a live service game that has been going for so long. They may have plenty of content to come as they are developing the game, but that cannot be at the cost of stability. So as a result of, I believe it was season 14, when most of the season was turned off and we had to wait for a lot of it to get kind of turned back on as they worked on stuff, Drew kind of stepped up and started to be the voice of Hot Topics. And as a result has done a fairly good job of trying to talk about issues that they know that the community want addressed, and are consistently giving us updates on a fairly regular basis about how those are going. For all in all, the start of the season seems to feel moderate as far as quality. There's definitely been issues, but those issues have seen hot fixes within hours of the actual issue coming up. They addressed a lot of server stability issues where people were getting weird beards that we talked about, I think, last week. We've got another hotfix coming in on Monday to address different issues. I would be very happy to see another patch come in next week to help further some of the issues that we're seeing, especially with some of the lag spikes that are still popping up as a result of heavy turn-ins to the sovereigns. I will once again shout out the fact that for whatever reason, captaincy supplies are now unlocking the locked up storage crates or cannonball crates or spears that you can buy. So if you buy stuff from like the merchants or the hunter's call, you find yourself unable to retrieve it, head over to the captaincy, head over to the shipwright, purchase some captaincy supplies. If you have a captain ship, hopefully you do. It doesn't take much to get one. It's a great save. And not only will you be rewarded with supplies that you're probably going to end up using in the long run, but it will then also open up the ability to claim those purchased items from the other NPCs, as opposed to having to spend a minimum of 20,000 gold on a trinket that you had no intention of buying because you didn't care about the trinket. Otherwise, you probably would have already bought it. So the other thing about that is I've noticed on diving, if I end up back at an outpost on a new server, I am able to actually purchase a new round of captaincy supplies. So I don't know if that's intentional, but it is appreciated because I've very much been out hunting ancient megalodons, and them boys take lot cannonball, and lot cannonball not easy find. So easy find captaincy supplies. New dive, get more cannonball. I'm liking. So I really enjoy it. I think they've done a good job with that. And I'm hoping that more updates come, that they continue to push out some of these hot fixes to help address some of the major issues, the critical issues with the game stability, so that we're continuing to be able to just enjoy the content, right?